Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today is Sam Jenkins, who is managing partner of Punchcard Systems and based in Edmonton. Thanks, Sam, for joining us today.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure.
Okay, what is Punchcard Systems? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Um, we're a digital transformation studio, and that what that means to us is that we help our customers unlock growth through building custom software, data platforms, AI, automation, and we partner with our clients to build tools that help them move what we call the metric that matters. So whether it's operational efficiency or customer engagement or workforce coordination, we're here to help them get to the next level.
Hmm. How did this all begin? And how long has Punchcard been around?
Well, Punchcard's been around for almost 10 years. We're halfway through our ninth year. But really, I would say it starts with the story between my business partner and I. Eston and I have been business partners now for going on 13 years, but work colleagues for almost 25. And so we've had the opportunity to hone our skills as consultants, as technologists, as folks who make impact on the world around us. But Punchcard was actually born out of one of our first ventures. We built a analytics platform that was focused on workplace health and wellness, insurance, and productivity data. And as we were wrapping that up, we wanted to parlay our skills in product development into something
Yeah,
for the next story for us.
yeah. So what's your background like prior all this? What did you go to university to take? And
Yeah, that's a good question. So my technology journey started before going to university. I had the opportunity to, and this is kind of a weird story, but I was part of a leadership class in high school, and I was sitting on the bus to one of our first leadership outings, um, with a fellow who he and his brother had started a software company. And I was fascinated by their journey. And he said, "Well, why don't you come do a little bit of work with us?" I said, "Sure, why not? I'd love to understand what you guys do." And over the course of that year and beyond, I got to learn from a couple of entrepreneurs that did some really neat stuff. They went on to build a company that then exited to CA. This is back in, call it 2005. Um, then I went back to university. I did a degree in management and organization. And then from there, I had the opportunity to work with a number of technology firms, starting with Intuit. I worked for an event management software company, and then I spent about a decade working in technology sales for a firm called Imer. And then from there, moved on to our first venture at Wellnext. So I mean, I like to think that I've learned from so many different entrepreneurs along the way who have gifted me with some of their experience.
what what was it or what is it about technology that fascinates you?
Ooh. I think I wouldn't say obsessed, but maybe I'm obsessed with curiosity. And I think technology I mean, throughout my entire career, I've had the opportunity to to play quite a bit with technology, and so even before my career started, I was building websites. I was trying to understand how technology worked. I mean, becoming an adult in the early stages of the internet really gave me opportunity to be able to pair my professional experience along with technology. And so it's really reinforced that kind of curiosity or that inquisitiveness that has become such an important part of how I work and how I apply technology to leadership as well.
Now, AI is all the rage right now, but I'm just, from your perspective, and being involved, so heavily involved in technology, what do you think of companies that don't embrace it?
You know what's really interesting about that? I spend a little bit of time these days working with leadership teams and board of directors, talking about AI and technology adoption and in terms of the future of their organization. And one thing that I keep trying to reinforce with the folks that I'm working with is that we keep thinking that AI is just another technology. It is not. It's akin to adding a new class of employee to our organizations, and so we have to be thinking so critically about how AI and change management are working in our organizations. How we're thinking about AI and workforce management is affecting our organization. Organizations that or businesses that don't start thinking about AI today and start building the patterns, the processes, the capabilities right at the very root of their organization, um, they have the potential of being left behind. And I think this is very true for Canadian organizations. We have to be at our most productive to be able to be competitive for what's happening in the world around us.
How many employees do you have?
We're currently just over 50 employees, and we stretch from Victoria all the way to Kitchener-Waterloo. So let's see if I can get this right. Victoria, Vancouver, Penticton, Edmonton, Calgary, Airdrie, Winnipeg, Toronto, Barrie, Kitchener-Waterloo. There might be somebody in Brampton. We are a fully remote organization, and that's why I can list off all of those different cities where our folks work, because we have the opportunity to work with absolutely the brightest, regardless of where they live in Canada.
When did you go fully remote?
There's also the million-dollar question. I have probably two answers to that. One, just like every other organization in 2020,
Yeah.
we unplugged our laptops in mid-March and everybody went home and thinking that we would stay remote for a couple of weeks and then a couple of months into the fall. And then, a couple of years went by and we had hired folks that weren't based in Edmonton, that weren't based in Alberta, that were based across Canada. And we had really leaned into the opportunity for us to be able to have a team that is pan-Canadian. And so it was last year in August where we officially closed our physical office, and went fully remote, and really embraced that infrastructure for our company.
What have from what you've seen, what have been the results of going fully remote?
Well, and I guess I would say that this is not a one size fits all experience for every organization. Um, Remote work isn't frictionless, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we have had to figure out new, better patterns, for us as an organization. Um, but I would also say that the benefit to us as an organization, some of it has to do with the fact that we get to work with talent regardless of where they work. I think that's a big deal because when when we were first going remote, part of the driver for us was here in Edmonton, the talent pool was actually a little bit shallow. We couldn't find folks, especially software developers, in our local market. And so we were able to branch out a little bit. Okay, so great. We have access to more talent to be able to fit our needs as an organization. What that also enabled us to do was to find other forms of talent, for example, our product managers or our designers, or other forms of consultants on our team who may find home is in a different place. So unlocking that talent has been really critical.
Hmm.
I'd say another element is around providing an incredible amount of flexibility to the folks that call Punchcard home. Um,
Hmm.
I am so grateful to the people who choose to work here at Punchcard. We have an incredible employee retention ratio. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that by working remote, we can provide an environment where folks who have young families, they thrive. People who have other forms of workplace needs thrive as well. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't put investment in coming together at the right time. It's not all remote. We do a couple of in-person gatherings a year, and there's lots of travel for folks, but we have to be very intentional about how our in-person organization works.
Do you think there's still a lot of, I guess, old style management beliefs about remote work?
I
You know,
like that question,
is
because I think
some of them think, oh yeah, you're going to be sitting around in your pajamas drinking beer all day, right?
and I don't think that's wrong, right? I mean, I think if we don't build the patterns to be able to create trust in organizations, Potentially, there are ways that our remote workforces don't end up being at their most productive. Um, so I do agree that there are likely some, we'll say, some older school sentiments in terms of how remote work can work. For us, what we have to do as an organization is we lean heavily on our core values. We talk about them a lot because we're actually setting very clear expectations in terms of what is required of the people here at Punchcard. We're also fortunate that we work in our teams really rely on each other, and so there's an accountability framework that exists naturally within our team. And so if people aren't meeting the expectations of their peers, well, they get called out. And so we've tried to be very clear about what that accountability culture looks like for us. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't get better at it. I think part of our challenge is actually making sure that we can put we have people who we don't want people working too much. We want people to find balance in our work. And I think remote work can lean towards being, a little bit on our computers too much or too connected to the screens that represent our workplace.
Yeah. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about being an entrepreneur. What do you think your biggest challenge was on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Okay, so I think if I look at my entrepreneurial journey through a couple of different lenses, there's probably been some phases of my entrepreneurial life. Um, but many of the challenges have to do with unknowns or uncertainty, we'll say. Early on, as we were building our first venture, and even as we were beginning to build Punchcard, we didn't know what we didn't know. I remember hiring our first employee and thinking, boy, I have to make payroll every 2 weeks. Well, that hasn't changed at all. I still have to make payroll every 2 weeks. The scale of payroll has changed pretty significantly. The expectation has changed as well. But I know more now, right? And I think there's some, like, especially for folks that are starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, I totally understand why it is um, so overwhelming or so intimidating because we just don't know what we don't know. Now, if I fast forward to my biggest challenge today as an entrepreneur is letting go, I think, of the things that I am so passionate about in our organization, but I also recognize that I can't do everything in the same way that I used to do. Like we were talking about earlier, there's 50 staff on our team. There's a lot of mouths to feed. We're now starting to scale our sales and marketing efforts. It's part of the practice that I am very, very passionate about, and I love having my fingers in. But I also recognize that I may no longer be the best person to handle some of those workloads. Giving up the things that I love is the hardest part about being at the current stage of growth that we're at.
Hmm. What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur?
Mm. One of my favorite questions because again, it comes back to that the we don't know what we don't know, but the things that I didn't realize early on, probably if I'm being really honest with myself, we don't have a full understanding of how difficult this job is going to be, and we actually don't realize what is actually going to be hard about it. And so I thought when I was first starting my entrepreneurial journey that I would have flexibility. I love movies. I love going to the movies, and I thought that I would get to go every once in a while, maybe more frequently than every once in a while. I would get to go see like a matinee during the day. I would get to like skip work and go to a matinee. It's been 13 years or 15 years of entrepreneurship. I haven't done that once. The flexibility that I have though is that every single day I get to choose the job that I am doing. And I didn't realize how empowering that choice is that empowerment of being able to be in charge of your destiny, of building an organization that is a reflection of your core values. That gets me up every single morning, and that's the thing that keeps me excited until I go to bed.
So, along the journey, are there any people that inspired you? Any books that inspired you?
Mm. So I am really fortunate that I have a business partner. His name's Eston Edwards, and Eston and I have been now business partners for, like I said, several ventures. Um, He is the smartest person I know. And so when I think about the inspiration that I get from my business partner, I am so fortunate that I have somebody that I'm kind of sharing this journey with. Um, his strengths, I think, back up my weaknesses, and he challenges me to think differently and think in different ways. Now that's kind of I would say like a inspired by a peer, and again, I think I have good fortune for that. I think I'm quite lucky. But I've also been really uh, lucky to have a number of mentors along the way. And I think when people think about mentors, sometimes they think about people that might be far in the, far older than us or, far more experienced. I've had a whole host of mentors, both formal and informal, that have provided guidance and um, an inspiration and advice and stories that have helped me become better and better and better. I am so grateful to the mentors that I've had along the way. Some of them, many of them, have been entrepreneurs themselves.
Interesting. Now, are you originally from Edmonton or
Yeah, born and raised here in Edmonton, and so proudly Albertan.
City of Champions, right? Uh, so, when you look at Edmonton as a place to be a business owner, what would you say the advantages are being in Edmonton
Ooh, yeah. So
or just in Alberta in general?
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna answer this question in three tranches. One through the lens of being an entrepreneur here in Edmonton. Second, through the lens of being an entrepreneur here in Alberta. And third, through the lens of being an entrepreneur here in Canada. Um, the Edmonton entrepreneurial ecosystem, the Edmonton business ecosystem, to be fair, is such a friendly and supportive ecosystem. I used to think that this was a good place to be able to build things. Actually, this is a really good place to be able to make mistakes, learn, and build faster. Because feedback is such an important part of our ecosystem. Again, speaking of mentors, a mentor of mine, Brad Ferguson, he said at a speech one time, he described Edmonton as this rural urban environment where urban barn building was part of our DNA.
Hmm.
I think that as we'll say a builder in this ecosystem, there is very little barrier for me to be able to ask for help. And that is a very useful tool as an entrepreneur because we don't know what we don't know. And you know what? There are some very keen mistakes that I've made along the way that I am happy to share with other people, and people have been happy to share with me. That being said, Edmonton is such an important part of the Alberta business ecosystem, the Alberta entrepreneurial ecosystem, and I would say that Alberta is one of the best places in Canada to be an innovator right now. There is so much activity here. There's capital, yes. There is a supportive business environment, absolutely. But there are people in Alberta who are doing some of the most interesting things in innovation, whether or not that's in energy, whether or not that's in banking or financial services, whether or not that's in robotics, whether or not that's in AI. We have some of the best talent here, which makes it really, I think, fortunate for us as entrepreneurs to be able to be a part of this ecosystem. And then looking at this through the lens of Canadian entrepreneurship, I think we have an opportunity as Canadian entrepreneurs to be able to build better here in Canada. We have the opportunity to be able to build what's next, and those who are brave, those who are innovative, those who have the courage to be able to take big bets. Well, Canada is going to be a really incredible place over the next 5, 10, 25, 50 years. I don't think there's a better place in the world to be making some of those bets.
Interesting. Well, it's such a pleasure talking to you, Sam. I appreciate you coming on today.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Sam Jenkins, who is managing partner of Punchcard Systems. I'm Mario Tonaguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.